State Farm is facing hundreds of lawsuits nationwide from its own customers. And here to talk about this a little bit more with us is 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor. You were just telling us that it's hundreds across the country, but it's, in one specific state. There's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah. So State Farm is being sued by its insured all over the country, but primarily the epicenter is in Oklahoma, where more than 600 lawsuits have been filed. And this is primarily related to wind and hail. And so they're being sued. And actually in Oklahoma, there's a case before the Supreme Court in which the Attorney General was involved, and they're trying to get him out. And the question is, are these consumer protection issues, or is this a private contract issue between State Farm and its insureds?
So, like, you think of Oklahoma, that's like Tornado Alley, right? But everybody tells you get insurance because that's how you get things paid. Well, so what are they accused of doing? Just denying claims?
Yeah, they're accused of denying claims, and there's actually a number of things that were in the actual complaint. And so one claim was actually denied because the roof didn't show signs of, quote, functional damage, but that wasn't even in the policy. So there was no definition of what functional damage was. In another situation, they said the hail had to go all the way through the shingle and hit the mat. Otherwise, they would call it just general wear and tear. Yeah. So it was really quite extreme. They were also ignoring, they wouldn't let the folks that went out actually make the decision, and they let the managers make the decision. So it was pretty egregious, according to these complaints.
This is, when you talk about insurance at large, this is a complaint that everybody has. I pay into insurance, and when it comes time for them to help me out, I mean, it's the business model. If they paid everybody out what everybody wanted, they wouldn't make any money. We get that. But what you're talking about is different. How are they defending themselves here?
Well, you actually just named one of them. They're saying, hey, if we pay for uncovered losses, in other words, if we don't fight these and we end up paying uncovered losses, the cost is going to be passed on to other insureds. So that's one thing they're saying. They're also claiming that they're honoring the letter of the contract. And I think what they mean is they're being hyper technical. And so they're finding ways to deny it. And they're finally saying that over the past 2 years, they've paid over $1 billion just on hail and wind damage claims just in Oklahoma.
Well, I mean, we can say what we can about Oklahoma. Colorado is Hail City. So what about here? Do we have any claims specifically related to the hailstorms that have hit here?
Not related to State Farm in this series of litigation, but what we do have is related to the wildfires. So the 2021 Marshall Fire, for example, folks are still dealing with that. And the issue there, so they're denying claims, they're delaying them, a bunch of issues. And the biggest issue, I think, is underinsured. So they're paying out a claim, but it's not nearly enough to cover the damages. So that's a major issue here in Colorado. We do have hail, but I think the wildfires is a bigger
5 years
issue.
later, I mean, you're still rebuilding, and the cost of everything to rebuild has changed.
And what makes it so egregious is when insurance comes into play is when you're at your lowest. I mean, those folks lost everything. They've lost their home. They have nowhere to go. Many times, if they're delaying payments to go to a hotel and things like that, it's just completely difficult for these families.
And so what you're talking about is specific to State Farm. That's this conversation. But for anybody who feels like their claim was denied in bad faith or delayed unnecessarily, what can they do?
Well, the first thing is to actually read the policy. And it's really, I know it's difficult because there's so much legalese, but you can go to the primary sections, for example, what coverage do I have and what are the exclusions? So that's one thing. And then you can also talk to the agent to make sure you're not underinsured. That's a big issue here in Colorado. So you just say to them, you put it in the email, do I have enough coverage if this happens, if this happens? Then, of course, if they delay it or don't pay enough, they're required by law to tell you why they denied the claim. So that's one thing. And then, of course, if you have to, you can go to the insurance commission and make a complaint. And then obviously there's a lot of lawyers that will go after them for bad faith. But of course, I mean, and that's a great thing, and they can get a resolution. But the problem is it takes years and years. It's expensive. It's emotional. And a lot of people just say, you know what, I'll take what they gave me and go. So
Brave the right flag,
yeah, exactly.
Again, part of the business model, I think.
It totally, yeah. And it's not just State Farm, as you said.
Right.
It's the industry.
Yeah, I don't want to pick specifically on State Farm. But.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Whitney. We'll start looking at fine
Yes,
print
go read
in
that.
our spare
Get your glasses
time.
out.
Okay,
Exactly.
thanks.